A lot of people have become obsessed with HRV now, and how can I get my HRV up? When I actually look at kind of the studies and the reductions that we see right across decades in terms of HRV, they tend to be present sort of lower numbers than I think people want because everyone's like, I want to make sure I've got a really high HRV. What would you say to that? Because it's very individualized, and we shouldn't be comparing against another person. How much do you work with people on their like as HRV as part of it to increase that as a marker of optimal health?
Yeah, I'm getting more and more focused on HRV being as important a biomarker of health as resting heart rate, for example. And I say that because I think HRV is probably the only indicator of our overall parasympathetic sympathetic balance and emotional health, right? And so when you're in a constant state of fight or flight, your sympathetic parasympathetic balance is going to be living mostly on the sympathetic side, just driving down your HRV and getting into a state of inner peace, calmness, safety is going to bring you more towards a state of parasympathetic. And so you want to, even, you're right, even though everyone's HRV number is what it is, you don't want to compare it to somebody else. You should be always trying to look at what's actually improving your HRV. And so sleep will improve that. Breath work will improve that. Meditation will improve that. But that's only on a while you're doing it kind of time period, right? And so it takes a long time for those things to really stack up and lead to long-term HRV improvement. And what I think really helps with your HRV for the long haul is really getting emotional health and stress management right in your life.
Yeah, I agree. I also noticed, like, just on a kind of short-term improvement basis, I noticed that the timing of evening meal makes a really big difference to HRV, like significantly, right? 20, it could make like a 20-30% difference if you've eaten really late. You just see that plunge.
Yes, and I think a lot of that is because a lot of these trackers give you your HRV after a night of sleep, and so the HRV that you're getting from like a Aura Ring or I think also the Whoop Band, although don't quote me from that, is an overnight HRV, and so your nighttime meal will definitely make a big difference there. You know, now Aura does have a setting that you can use where you can go in there and do a meditation or a breath work or something, measure your HRV during that time period, and you can kind of see how it changes compared to your nightline HRV. But you're absolutely right. Anything you can do to improve your sleep will improve the HRV number that you're getting, which is usually a nighttime HRV measurement.
Yeah, and also I think when you go into the settings, I like to do this where actually you can run your finger across because then you can start to get some idea over how long it took you to recover. Because if you just get that average, as you're saying, it could be that the HRV was really low at the beginning of the night, but actually you did get a bit of a quite a rebound in recovery, and then you can optimize right things like digestion to help. Um, it wouldn't be complete to talk about female health without talking about hormones. This is really, really important, obviously. What are the key things when you're working with a female client who is going through that transition between peri and postmenopause? What are you looking for there, and what are you testing?
I mean, literally everything, Angela. So, first of all, in the United States, we have a major hill to climb around the safety of hormone replacement therapy for women. And I think this is true in most of the Western world. And it's unfortunate because of studies like the Women's Health Initiative, it really took us back 5 decades, I think, in the this incredibly beneficial therapeutic intervention for both men and women is hormone replacement therapy. And so for me, it's more about which women should not be getting hormone replacement therapy, like, kind of teasing that out versus using it at all, using it yes or no. I think most women should be considered for hormone replacement therapy. It is a massive boost to your health, longevity, and health span. And the other things I'm looking at besides getting women on estrogen and progesterone, and definitely also looking at testosterone as a potential adjunct as well, is looking at their cholesterol biomarkers, their gut health, their brain health, their inflammation levels, all of it in totality, because everything shifts. And this is almost like you need to make sure that every year you're being proactively testing and you're individualizing that woman's health over the course of perimenopause to menopause, and then getting to a place when menopause is kind of locked in, that you're in a really good regimen that has brought that those biomarkers of health forward in that time period. Because what you see normally is, the diving off the cliff of the estrogen, but also the other biomarkers of health are also going in a negative direction, and everything's just kind of allowed to go that way. And you really want to make sure it doesn't, and you want to make sure that carries forward through the postmenopausal journey as well.
So do you see that women who are open to having hormone therapy actually end up with better, kind of metabolic biomarkers, cholesterol, blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, things like that? Do you see that effect take place, reasonably quickly? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might be is probably causative, but it's also correlative, because women who feel better are going to the gym more. They're enjoying life more. They're keeping the weight off. They are able to sleep better. All of this and all of that kind of, it's all going to help all your biomarkers of health.
I know you also specialize in metabolic and liver health. What would you say to people who are struggling a little bit with weight gain, particularly abdominal weight gain, as they move through midlife? What are the key things they should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think what happens also in midlife is that your insulin sensitivity shifts, and so you really want to dial in your diet at this point in time. And so I'm a big believer in using tools like the continuous glucose monitor and pairing that with a nutritionist who can help guide you as to your choices. And you only need to do this for about 6 weeks or so, 6 to 8 weeks, and really just use this as a learning period and really understand what's moving your serum glucose levels and why, to shift your diet and shift your patterns a little bit. And so definitely needs to be a focus. And then if you're still struggling beyond that, there are other things that you can do, such as getting on a small dose of metformin. There's also things that you can do, such as high intensity interval training, that can also be an adjunct. But you really got to get your metabolic health dialed in midlife.